We now present For the Record.
Just ahead, a criminal legal proceeding hangs in the balance as Madison approaches a sobering anniversary in the shooting of Tony Robinson.
I believe that Officer Kenny did not follow police protocol. I don't believe that those shots were necessary, and I believe we can establish that.
Plus, the Republican in charge of writing the state budget promising big tax cuts next year.
Historically, we've cut taxes, and both property taxes and income taxes, and I think we'll look at both those areas again moving forward.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Naomi Coles. Tomorrow is the 8th anniversary of Tony Robinson's death, a teenager shot and killed by Madison police officer Matt Kenney, who remains on the force today, and Kenney was never charged in that death. The shooting remains a heavy cloud over Madison. Family have spent 8 years fighting for some form of justice. Hanging in the balance right now, a little-used state law that allows the family to sidestep the normal prosecution process and ask a judge directly to decide whether there's probable cause for criminal charges. Now, Jessa Nicholson is helping lead a team of lawyers in this effort. She joins us now. Jessa, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I just referenced this little-used state law. Explain just how rare it is to use this process.
I think it's maybe been used half a dozen times, a dozen times. There's very little appeals law on how this statute functions, so it's something that you definitely don't see every day. I think probably I can think personally of maybe 3 other cases where I've seen it done.
Now, this process started months and months ago, and yet we still have not gotten to the actual hearing before a judge that looks at the evidence to see, is there merit here? Why is it taking so long?
So because this is a rarely used provision of law, there's a lot of confusion about the procedure. So the first thing that happened is Judge Colas, who was the assigned judge, issued an order on procedure and had a hearing scheduled where evidence would be taken. Judge Colas retired, and then the case bounced to a number of judges, all of whom had to recuse themselves for various reasons, finally landed with Judge Elke, who's able to keep the case. He had a concern about the ability to appoint a special prosecutor in the event that probable cause was found. And so he took the hearing dates off that were scheduled, asked the team to write a brief essentially outlining what legal authority exists to appoint a special prosecutor. We've now done that. We expect a ruling on whether or not we satisfactorily established that, and then we expect to schedule dates.
Why do you think so many judges had to recuse themselves?
So it's my understanding that anyone that had been previously employed by the Dane County District Attorney's Office at some point in time during the charging decision back in 2015, so like Judge Diane Schlipper was an ADA at that time. She was one of the judges that was assigned. We had a reserve judge in place. The statute says reserve judges can't hear it. Then there were a couple of other judges that I think had ties either directly to the Dane County DA's office at the time or had been perhaps involved in the federal litigation in some way, either as a witness or just a member of staff. So they just had large-scale conflicts.
Now, you mentioned we're almost to that point where we can potentially have these dates set again for this, this big hearing. What kinds of evidence are we going to hear?
So we expect to call some of the officers that arrived at the scene. We're going to call experts on use of force. We're going to call at least 1 pathologist, possibly 2. And we're going to put on sort of the audio-visual components. There's some tech evidence that syncs up the body cam videos with some of the audio. So we have a witness that's going to kind of explain all of that as well. But it'll be the responders and then use of force experts and pathologists.
And I imagine you probably have some degree of confidence here that potentially we either get to a criminal complaint, potentially get to a special prosecutor. Why do you have that confidence?
I have that confidence because I've been a criminal defense attorney for almost 20 years, and I'm an experienced homicide attorney. So I know probable cause when I see it.
What do you think the probable cause is here?
I think the probable cause is that an unarmed young man was shot multiple times and killed, and I believe that Officer Kenny did not follow police protocol. I don't believe that those shots were necessary, and I believe we can establish that.
What do you think the judge, and you can never speculate what a judge is going to do, right? But I guess if you had to speculate.
What I can say is I've appeared in front of Stephen Elke a number of times in my career. I find him to be an exceedingly balanced, exceedingly fair judge. I think he will listen carefully to everything we present, and if he finds that we proved our case, I expect that he'll follow the law. So I expect he will authorize the filing of a complaint if I do my job properly.
I mentioned earlier this, we're talking just a day now before. It's been 8 years. This happened in 2015. Monday is the 8-year anniversary. I know you're in close touch with the family. What is the feeling right now? We've gone 8 years without any form of...
Well, and I want to be clear, I represent Sharon Irwin, Tony's grandmother, so I don't speak for the entire family. Our case is centered on her. I know Sharon has been doing a lot of outreach recently. She is really committed to being involved in the community and trying to raise awareness about issues of young Black lives being lost to police overreach. So I think she's hopeful. She's obviously grieving still to this day, but I know that she's been participating in recent art exhibitions and community awareness. And so I think that regardless of what happens next, I think it's been really important for her to have this story told in the way that the team of lawyers working on this has tried to tell it.
Anything I haven't asked that you'd like to touch on?
Just that, I think it's important for people to understand that there are resources when justice has sort of failed them. And I would encourage people not to necessarily give up because there are committed lawyers out there that will try and help if we think we can.
Jessa, thank you as always for sharing your expertise. I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, we will be right back.